No, my mom was so poor she opened a Gmail account just so she could eat the Spam.
Spam is sometimes referred to as a mystery meat, and people have their own ideas about how it's made and what it is. So here to fill in the blanks on everyone's favorite canned meat are 10 secrets about how Spam is really made.
The secret ingredient is...
The story of Spam.
From his humble beginnings as a... Stay standing.
Every highly debated food has its origin story. Spam has become much more than just salted pork in a can. It has become part of popular culture, and most people know about Spam, even if they don't like it. J. Hormel introduced Spam to Americans in 1937, but by the 1940s, his relationship with his creation was a little strained. The product was championed by many people and maligned by others. These mixed reviews led Mr. Hormel to develop something of a love-hate relationship with the product that was destined to become the Hormel Company's most famous brand. Over the years, Spam has developed huge followings in both Hawaii and South Korea. These markets in particular have remained fiercely loyal to Spam regardless of economic conditions or the ebb and flow of the product's reputation. The recession that hit a lot of people hard in 2008 was bad news for families struggling to navigate a faltering economy, but it was good news for Spam.
Oh, jolly good.
Many people were willing to overlook Spam's mixed reputation, and they helped to fuel a 10% increase in sales for Hormel. Whether you hate it or love it, the story of Spam will continue as long as shoppers seek out the little blue can. Heating the meat.
Everything has to be perfect.
Getting Spam's canning process right is crucial to the product's long life.
Tell me about it.
Hormel has a particular cooking process that it follows, which helps make this happen. After the cans are filled with meat, they are sent through a specialized piece of equipment called a hydrostatic cooker. The hydrostatic cooker uses very hot water to cook the filled cans as they pass through several chambers inside the machine. The cans work their way through the chambers, and this lengthy trip includes cooking, sterilization, washing, and finally, cooling. These impressive machines are capable of processing as many as 33,000 cans of Spam every hour. This might sound like an extraordinary amount of product, but the plant needs to maintain this level of output to keep the supermarket shelves well stocked with Hormel's most famous food. After the cooking process is complete, the cans of Spam are ready to be boxed up and shipped. It's easy to overlook how much work goes into putting out a product like Spam. A lot of thought has been put into making sure it is available to the millions of people around the world who continue to enjoy it. From mystery to icon.
What's in the box?
Spam, the enigmatic meat in a can, has had a long and complicated relationship with both Hormel and the people who eat the salty pork. Company executives didn't always want to defend it, and customers didn't always want to buy it because of questions about the perceived quality of the product. A lot of the past trepidation about Spam has been overcome with help from an unexpected source. Spam was having a good run in the 1970s, and an appearance in Monty Python's Flying Circus helped to solidify Spam as a genuine part of popular culture. At one point in the comedy, the entire cast burst into a song celebrating Spam. This is the kind of publicity a company can't buy at any price.
Good for them.
Maybe there is really no such thing as bad publicity, but there was no question this was very good publicity for Spam. Several decades later, this musical number was reintroduced to the world when the musical Spam-A-Lot debuted on Broadway in 2004. Spam will never be confused with filet mignon, but it does continue to be a popular food that many people enjoy. It has survived the slings and arrows of a fickle public to become an iconic brand. Into the mix.
Can anyone guess the secret ingredient?
Spam has a somewhat mysterious reputation that leads some people to believe they can never really be sure what Hormel's popular product actually contains. This misconception has been kept alive by critics of the product, but it can be easily dismissed. The fact is that Spam contains only 6 ingredients. The ingredients are pork, salt, water, potato starch, sugar, and sodium nitrate. Mystery solved.
Easy peasy.
The pork is deboned by meat cutters and then ground up into large batches for further processing. At this point, the meat is checked for foreign substances, including the use of metal detectors. The ground meat is then sent to a series of vacuum mixers that cool the meat until it's nearly frozen. At this point in the process, the remaining 5 ingredients are added to the pork in sealed, airtight containers. This is a very specific process because Hormel wants to make sure the meat retains most of its water when it's cooked instead of leaking out. If too much water leaks out while it's being cooked, the pork would become dry and unappealing. The ingredients and the processes used to make Spam are pretty straightforward and should put people's minds at ease about whether or not this meat is mysterious after all. Spam into a can.
Spam and Reese's, all right.
Did you know that Spam is cooked at the factory in its familiar tin? But before Spam can be shipped out the door to your local supermarket, it has to find its way into Hormel's distinctively shaped metal cans. The batches of Spam still haven't been cooked when they reach the filling machines. Instead of filling the cans from the top, the machines actually put the pork mixture in the cans from the bottom. Another machine puts the lids on and stamps each can. A combination of vacuum sealing the can and then cooking the contents is what gives Spam its famously long shelf life. Hormel has carefully constructed Spam's canning process to make the product last as long as possible.
Long.
This process is one of the secrets about how Spam is really made. There was a lot of trial and error involved as the process was perfected. However, all the testing eventually paid off for Hormel, and the result is an appealing product people like to eat. Well, at least most people. It was found that using the right amount of salt and heating the meat to a certain temperature were the keys to a successful process. Thanks to these simple steps, Spam can sit in your cupboard for a long time. A bestseller.
Money.
If Spam was a book, it would be on the New York Times bestseller list. Spam has been the butt of more than its share of jokes over the years, but it's been around since 1937, so the people at Hormel must be doing something right. Despite Spam's dubious reputation among some people, the product's huge sales are proof that a lot of people like to eat it. Sales of Spam received a tremendous boost during World War II because Allied troops were eating about 15 million cans of Spam every week.
Wow.
The compact metal can made Spam a good choice for soldiers who needed to fill their backpacks with ready-to-eat foods that didn't need to be cooked. It was also a good choice because the canned food wouldn't spoil easily in the field. By the time the peace treaties were signed, as many as 100 million cans of Spam had been consumed by hungry troops. After the war ended, Spam's popularity continued to grow at a steady pace. Hormel reached an impressive milestone in 1959 when the company sold its 1 billionth can. If 1 billion cans seems like a monumental achievement, then consider that by 2017, Hormel had sold 8 billion cans and counting. There are not a lot of products that can match these kinds of numbers, and there is no reason to think Hormel won't continue to reach new milestones. As we keep moving on, take a second to hit that like button, would ya?
Thank you. Next!
Everlasting Spam.
This is expired.
Willy Wonka promised children that everlasting gobstoppers would last forever. No one will confuse Spam with magical candy, but the shelf life of Hormel's classic canned food is quite a trick. Spam's long shelf life is a point of pride for the company, but some people do wonder about the exact reasons behind this achievement. The salty meat is fully cooked, so it can sit on your shelf or be part of your emergency supplies in case you need some food that is ready to eat right out of the can. Even if you don't think Spam is the most appealing food in the world, it probably wouldn't hurt to have a couple cans tucked away just in case you need them. You know, in case of a zombie apocalypse.
I eat brains.
People have wondered what Spam's actual shelf life is, for reasons of food safety or simply out of curiosity. Hormel insists its product will stay good indefinitely if the can is sealed properly and remains undamaged. Even if it will remain edible for years to come, it doesn't mean the Spam will remain as fresh and tasty as the day it was canned. The company had to admit that the taste will start to decline after a couple of years on the shelf. Spam's label warns that the product could start to go bad after 5 years, but most people who love Spam will eat it long before it starts to decline. Controlling quality.
A little quality control on this wouldn't hurt, huh?
Yes.
Every company insists they offer only the best quality of products to their customers, and Hormel is no different. The company has a number of quality control procedures in place to help make sure the Spam that people buy lives up to their expectations. This is an important part of the process, and it's one of the secrets about how Spam is really made. Hormel works with a number of meat suppliers that the company trusts to deliver quality meat that won't pose a risk to their customers' health. The meat cutting process must be followed carefully to avoid any contamination of the meat.
That look like spit to you?
Yeah.
A number of safety procedures are in place along the assembly line, such as specialized monitoring equipment that sets off alarms if a problem with the meat is detected. Department of Agriculture regulations keep the Spam at the processing plant for 10 days so the product can be properly tested. The plant is required to randomly check a certain number of cans of Spam by subjecting them to a 100-degree Fahrenheit heating test. This simple test can reveal problems with the canning and cooking processes that could potentially expose customers to bacteria. Before the cans are shipped out, Hormel executives do their part to ensure that quality is maintained. They will sometimes cap off the quality control process with a taste test. The process.
It takes time.
Sometimes we forget that the foods we enjoy don't just magically arrive on store shelves. There is a lot of processing that goes into making Spam. Maybe you don't want to know exactly how Spam makes it into a can, but it wouldn't hurt to have a general idea.
Yeah, why not?
Plants in Nebraska and Minnesota were responsible for producing all the Spam sold in the United States. This changed in 2018 when Hormel decided to sell the Nebraska processing plant to a consortium of pig farmers. Spam continues to be popular in the U.S., but it's also popular around the world. Much of the Spam sold internationally is processed in plants in South Korea, the Philippines, and Denmark. When it comes to actually processing the pigs for the meat that will be made into Spam, it isn't a very pretty picture. The processing plants are set up as quick-moving assembly lines that prepare the large amounts of pork from the shoulder, thigh, and buttocks. This is the meat that is to be made into Spam. As many as 20,000 pigs are processed every day to make Spam. The reason for the recipe.
Everyone, meet your meat.
No one would dispute that Spam needs pork to be Spam, but the reasons behind the other ingredients in this salty staple may not be quite as obvious. For example, people have questioned the necessity of including sodium nitrate in the recipe because some sources have identified the compound as a cancer-causing agent.
What?
However, researchers have been able to determine that sodium nitrate itself isn't the culprit when it comes to cancer. It's true that an issue can arise, but this is dependent on how the compound is used. If sodium nitrate is combined with substances that have a high amino acid content and heated, it can cause problems. You with us so far? So under these conditions, compounds called nitramines are created, and it's these compounds that have been associated with cancer. Including sodium nitrate in the recipe for Spam is an effective way to discourage the growth of bacteria that can cause botulism. Like other food companies, Hormel doesn't want customers getting sick from eating its products. It isn't all serious business when it comes to sodium nitrate because the compound is also the reason Spam sports its distinctive pink color. Adding sodium nitrate to the pork results in a chemical reaction that gives the canned meat its familiar appearance. Okay, now science class is over.
Class dismissed.
We're serving up more great videos. Just tap or click, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell to join our notification squad. And hey, leave us a comment.